Hi everybody, my name is Esther Yang and we have here Justice Lou Nock. And good morning, Justice Nock.
Good morning, Esther. It's wonderful to be with you this morning.
Thank you so much for being here, by the way. And I know that it's still, I know that you have trial later on, but I'm really glad that you're here on your little mini breaks before we start anything. So let me introduce everybody we're going to talk about DACA. So let me introduce you about Justice Nock. Justice Nock is an acting Supreme Court justice sitting in Manhattan. Justice Nock previously served as civil court judge and criminal court judge in Manhattan as well. And he's a recipient, oh this is so awesome, of President Obama's Silver Volunteer Service Award for his many years of pro bono service as an attorney for nearly 30 years. He's also a retired U.S. Coast Guard officer and New York State Coast Guard officer and recipient of the Coast Guard Commandant Achievement Medal and New York State Humane Service Award for his many years of volunteer service. The view expressed here are his own because he's a sitting judge and I want to talk to him about DACA. He's actually, I want to remind everybody, he's actually an auxiliary, right? A retired. So maybe you can talk about that, what it's like to be, before we do anything, I think maybe talk about why did you choose being a lawyer? Why did you choose legal field where you can be a doctor or anything else? I always find that very interesting.
First of all, Esther, I want to tell you what a pleasure and honor it is to be with you and with your viewers. You've done so much for children around New York City and all communities.
Thank
it's really
you.
an honor to be here. It's funny you mentioned doctors because all my cousins are doctors. So the reason I became a lawyer is because of my experience with my parents. They had gone through such difficulty in their lives. My dad was a Holocaust survivor and had much of his family killed during the war. My mother was an American, but she had great difficulty growing up during the Great Depression and so forth. Growing up in my parents' home taught me principles about whenever you have any opportunity to help another human being, to give another human being a leg up, a step up, do it. And they themselves they would have been happy with anything I would have done in my life. But they themselves were very proud and very happy that I chose the law because the law gives a particular opportunity for people to help folks in need. So it's been a wonderful career, and I look to my parents as my inspiration.
And you've been a litigator for a long time, correct? And how many years? I mean, it's what, 30 years you've been a litigator?
It was 30 years in a very wonderful career that I had as a lawyer practicing commercial and corporate litigation in New York. And I always had the desire to become a judge because I feel, Esther, that the principles I just mentioned, there's so much greater opportunity as a judge where you can help a vast array of people in the community as a judge, hopefully making good decisions that help the communities. So what I would say is, I said to myself, I want to be a judge, but I want to be ready for it. I don't want to jump into something like that. Right. So I made a career out of the law, and when I felt I was ready, that's when I ran to become a judge. And it's just a wonderful experience to be able to help communities in that fashion.
So just so the viewers know, being a judge is actually making less money than being a litigator. And so I really admire you for giving up your practice as a litigator where you can make more money and in private practice and private law firm than being a judge. Because a judge is literally less money and just doing a public servant for that. So I wanted to bring you up because that's a lot of issue as being as an immigrant. I mean, obviously your parents were immigrants, your dad was being a Holocaust survivor. So I want to talk about this issue about DACA. Some people call it dreamers. So can you just briefly said what is DACA means and why we're having a problem right now? What's the issue really?
Absolutely, Esther. You mentioned dreamers and you mentioned DACA. I will explain the relationship between the two. DACA is an acronym, DACA. It stands for a law called Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. And I think your viewers will understand it better after I explain. DACA is a U.S. immigration policy that was implemented by President Obama, who issued an executive order back in 2012. And what it does, Esther, it allows certain undocumented people under the age of 31 who were brought here to the United States when they were under 16 years old. It allows such people to apply to receive a renewable 2-year period of deferred action from deportation and to be eligible to obtain a work permit. So what that means is, under the Obama administration, an executive order was issued that said, look, if you fall into that category and you've been basically a child growing up in the United States, we will defer, or the federal government will defer any deportation action for 2 years, renewable, to allow you to obtain a work permit. Now, the qualifications are as follows. Like I said, the person has to have an unlawful presence in the U.S. Before their 16th birthday. They have to have lived continuously in the U.S. since that time. Have to be under 31 at time of application, and etc. Now, you mentioned something about dreamers.
Right.
Allow me to explain. There was a push. There was a bill to push what was known as the DREAM Act. It's not DACA, It's something that would be like more expansive than DACA.
Right.
And the DREAM Act tried to do more. The DREAM Act tried to grant full legal status to young immigrants residing in the U.S. In other words, it was a pathway to permanent residency in the U.S.
And a pathway to citizenship, too.
That is absolutely correct.
Yeah, because some of these kids, it's not their fault that their parents took them, and, you know, so they're stuck in the U.S. and being in a limbo.
The legislative history, the congressional legislative history reflects what you just said.
Right.
In terms of course, the legislators who promoted the bill. Now, the bill made its way through Congress, but ultimately did not pass. Again, the Dreamer bill, had it been signed into law, would have, as you say, been a path to permanent residency and citizenship. DACA, and again, it did not pass. However, by executive order, we do have DACA, and what DACA does is it doesn't guarantee anything, but it allows you to apply. It allows folks that fall into that category to apply for a work permit and, take it from there. So, DACA doesn't go as far as the Dreamer Act wanted to go, but it does provide, a certain measure of relief to folks that are seeking that kind of relief. Now, to illustrate how popular DACA had become, statistics that I have looked at tell us that in the first 4 years of its existence, about 800,000 DACA applications were filed. Now, so that is an overview about DACA. Presently, what is the status of DACA? Well, there has been a lot of litigation in the federal courts about it. Do you think your viewers would like to hear a little about that?
Yeah, yeah, they would. But I think before that, I just want to introduce everybody. This is Justice Lou Nock, and he doesn't have, he's not a federal judge, so he doesn't have issue about immigrants or DACA in front of him. So this is why I want to ask Your Honor about questions about DACA, and just to be clear, because I myself am confused, and I think you are the best person to explain it to, and also you have the biggest heart, right? Because as a child of Holocaust survivor, I think you have the empathy to see what immigrant is going through right now, and this is such a confusing time for some of my viewers, anyway. So if you like the channel, I just want to tell them, if you like the channel, make sure you subscribe, make sure you put like, and make sure you click that notification bell so that when we have other informations about that we do on a weekly basis, because I believe that as we educate ourselves, we educate others. So yeah, the viewers would like to know. So we have close to 1 million applicants. That's what you're saying. So now what? Because what's happening? Because I know there was the issues with in Texas. So can you just tell us more about that? What happened? So this is a federal issue. So some of you are maybe like confused. So there's a state judge, there's a federal judge. So the federal judge deal with immigration, but anyway, do tell us more about this issue. That's what's happening in Texas.
Of course, Esther. Thank you. Now here's the thing. Since a little after the initial implementation of DACA back in 2012, there has been much federal litigation about the DACA executive order of President Obama. And there was a time when President Obama, when the executive order was desired to be expanded to include folks who were to expand the scope of folks who could apply.
Right.
And that spawned a whole host of federal litigation. But to the extent that right now there is a very recent federal district court decision out of the federal district court in Texas as recently as July 16th of this year.
Wow.
Where the federal district court in Texas actually held that DACA is unlawful. And the reasoning why that particular court came to that conclusion, that court felt that the executive order under the Obama administration in 2012 creating DACA violated a different federal law called the Administrative Procedure Act, the APA. That act governs what procedures federal agencies can use, have to go through to implement policies. In this case, it would be the Department of Homeland Security or the United States Citizenship and Immigration Service, USCIS. So the federal judge in Texas concluded that the executive order in 2012 violated the APA, and he actually held that the DACA law is unlawful. Now, interestingly, though, Esther, the federal district court created a dichotomy. What it did was it said, look, folks who already are in the DACA program,
right,
meaning that their DACA applications have been approved, their status will not be disturbed. However, anyone who falls into the category of DACA and applies now, those applications are blocked. They will not go forward. That's the current status, which obviously creates,
a problem.
I would call it a certain uncertainty for folks that otherwise would fall into the DACA categorization.
Because it's not their fault, right? Because if the application is approved, that's another thing. But if the application is being reviewed, especially during the pandemic where everything shut down, everybody works remote, so then now what?
Well,
with this confusion.
There is definitely uncertainty with regard to folks who, under the DACA criteria, fit the criteria, but because of this recent Texas Federal District Court decision, are now blocked. To compounding the uncertainty is, I would mention, back in December, a federal district court here in New York actually did the opposite. The Eastern District of New York said that the government agencies have to, entertain new DACA applications. So you can see, Esther, and your viewers can see how much in flux this entire issue is. I will say this. The news has reported that under the current Biden administration, the current Biden administration has announced its intention to appeal the Texas Federal District Court decision that I told you about that just came out July 16th, and the administration wants to, try to get that reversed and put it more in sync with what I just described. The
from the
New York
Eastern
Federal Court did. Now that appeal would go to the 5th Circuit Court of Appeals, which the territory there is Texas. So obviously, I would just conclude by saying, yes, you're right. There is a state of flux right now. There is a state of uncertainty right now, and we won't know the end of that story until these legal issues work their way through the courts. So yes.
So then President Biden is going to try to appeal it, and then we're going to go straight. Then after that, will that goes to the U.S. Supreme Court?
Well, no one can ever predict the future, but I think there's a good chance that it might. Okay.
So then if it goes to the U.S. Supreme Court, and then we will see, and I think we will all play, like you said, it will all play out, and everybody else, if you're a DACA or Dreamers, and if your application is, being approved or being reviewed, and I think I want to just put it out there to just have faith and have hope and stay strong. And for New York City, we have like over 8 million people, and the majority of it are the people of color. Like the majority of the minority, and we're all immigrant at one point. So I just want to have the viewers to have that. And Justice Lou Nock, I want to thank you for being on our show. Thank you for clarifying it for DACA and educating us about it. This is, of course, just for the viewers to know, this is also Justice Lou Nock, his own expressions of view, because I asked him to, if he could comment about what DACA is, where do we go, because I know a lot of the viewers were asking questions for me, and I thought, the best person would be just to ask Justice Lou Nock, because I think you're very brilliant, being a litigator for 30 years, oh my gracious, I mean, that's really a long time, and have so many things under your belt. So I want to thank you again for being here. All right, if you forget, don't forget to subscribe, and do the bell.
Esther, it's a pleasure to be here. I would just add, I'm here just to educate. As a sitting judge, it's not my purview to express policy. I'm just here to educate your viewers, because you provide such a wonderful forum for education, and it's a pleasure and honor to be with you.
Thank you. And just one last thing. Is the court open now in New York State?
So the courts are beginning to blossom open.
Yes.
For a very long time, the public was not allowed in, and we were doing court hearings by remote. But now I'm happy to say that slowly but surely we're beginning to open. In fact, as you mentioned in the beginning, I'm on trial, and I have lawyers and jurors and folks coming in. So let's hope, everybody, that we can look to the sunlight at the end of this darkness that we've had. Everyone should be healthy and happy, and let's work together to do good things always.
Thank you so much, Justice Nock. Bye, everyone. Thank you. Hey, everyone, it's Esther Yang. Don't forget to like and subscribe and click that bell. Thank you.